Welcome to the Actualize Capstone presentations. I'd like to welcome everybody watching on YouTube Live, as well as YouTube in the future. My name is Brian Rice, and I've been helping the presenters learn the fundamentals of web development over the last 12 weeks. Each presenter chose an idea for an app and has built their app from scratch in the last 6 weeks. For logistics, we have a few panelists who will introduce themselves shortly, and each presenter will present to one panelist. The panelists will ask a few follow-up questions, and we'll kind of rotate through that way through all 12 presenters. We have 3 panelists. We have Jay Wengrow, Brad Edmonds, and George Chris Carter. So Jay, if you want to do the first introduction, or introduce yourself, I should say.
Sure. So I'm Jay Wengrow, the CEO of Actualize. I'm super excited to see all the students, now grads, capstone presentations. It's very hard to describe how much work the students put into this. The program is intense. They learn a tremendous amount of material in a very short time, work very, very hard. So what you're going to see is just a piece of what they've worked on during the course, but it's really testament to how amazing each and every one of the students are, and the work ethic and what they've put into this. I just want to take this opportunity to also thank all those involved with the facilitation of this program. So in particular for this cohort, Brian Rice, our lead instructor, who always does a fantastic job leading our cohorts. He was one of the architects behind our online format, which is now our primary format, thanks to the pandemic. But so thank you, Brian. Also want to thank TAs, Lauren Patrick, our amazing career staff, Lisa, Sarah, and to everyone else who's involved. So that's about it. Really excited to see the presentations.
Thank you, Jay. So Brad and Chris, we'll have you introduce yourselves. If you can give us your name, I guess I already gave that away. What you currently do for work, and one piece of advice you would give to a developer or to one of these students who's just starting their first job, like that first week, what advice you would give them? Maybe first month, wherever you want to take it. Brad, you can go first.
Sure, I'm Brad Edmonds. I'm an associate automation developer with Allegis Global Solutions. My bit of advice for newbie developer in their first few weeks, few months is it's okay to feel like you don't know what you're doing. You'll get there. Everybody goes through it. So it's okay to feel a little overwhelmed in a new gig, but that's all part of the fun.
Thank you. Chris, same questions to you.
Hey, I'm Chris. I graduated Actualize back in May. I'm currently a web developer for Mass General Hospital in their Center for Systems Biology. They do research there, which is pretty cool. And I guess my biggest piece of advice would be to use all of the skills that you learned in this course and just apply them as much as possible. Keep in touch with Lisa. She's a great asset. And if you learned everything from Brian, so you have a great base, and just keep learning, never stop coding, be my best advice.
Couldn't agree more. So we'll get into the presentations. First up will be Connor. You can go ahead, Connor. Oh, and Connor's panelist will be Jay.
Thank you, Brian. Just a second while I set things up. All right. So my name is Conor Mcguire, and as I'm sure many of you can relate, when it comes to life's truly important decisions, such as what to stream on Netflix, I often waste more time deliberating between options than it would take to actually watch one of those options. So to solve that sort of gridlock, I wanted to make an app that gives a user a selection of titles and helps them eliminate options rather than have to choose an option from the plethora of streaming sites. People tend to be much faster at deciding what they don't want than what they want. So without further ado, this is Streamathon, as you might have picked up on from my screen. For a new user, let's say ubiquitous Bob, he arrives at the site and is promised a free and fun way to decide what to stream. Bob doesn't like scrolling, that's the whole reason he's here, but Bob sees a button and Bob likes buttons. So Bob presses the button. He sees another button, but he knows he doesn't have an account. So he sees a sign up button. He clicks that button and he's off to the races, but not quite yet because he still needs to create said account. Bob types in his information, which I've already hard coded here, and he clicks submit, which takes him, it automatically logs him in and takes him to a page to select his streaming services. So Bob has Hulu and Netflix because those are the big two. He has Disney Plus because of the monopoly on Marvel. He's not bougie enough for HBO Max, but he's got Prime Video. And Bob has no idea what that weird P logo is, but it's probably one of those new network services that are stealing content back from Netflix. What ubiquitous Bob doesn't know is that when he clicks this button here, it will prompt a Ruby on Rails backend to save his services to a many-to-many table on a PostgreSQL database using Active Record as the ORM. But Bob doesn't care about that. Bob is simply asked to choose his game options next. Still not entirely sure what's going on, Bob chooses some options. He likes the number 5, he was jonesing for some comedy, and he wants a movie. So he clicks this button. And once again, unbeknownst to Bob, clicking this button will prompt the backend to pull data on choices that are available on his pre-selected streaming services from 3 separate APIs before sending said data to a Vue.js front end, where it will be parsed with JavaScript and compiled for Bob's viewing pleasure using an HTML5 template. But all Bob knows is that a computer is telling him to play a game and watch some TV. Take the blue pill, Bob. So he's given some options, and he is asked to take turns with the computer, eliminating options. He's not really in the mood for a cartoon, so he eliminates Brave. Next, the computer takes a turn, and it eliminated the other cartoon. Perfect. Next, the 2 popes. That sounds too serious. So he eliminates that, and the computer makes the last choice, and he's left with Booksmart. He's got a description here, he's got a rating, and he's got a Watch Now button, which will direct him to the streaming service that the title is available on. So that is Streamathon, a free, fun way to decide what to stream.
Thank you, Connor. Jay, you can go ahead.
Connor, this is awesome. Really well done. I definitely have a lot of questions. First, I'm going to ask, you mentioned that it's pulling these shows and movies from APIs. So is that like the Netflix API, or is it like some other aggregation API?
So it pulls the data on what's available on those streaming services from a third-party API called Watch Mode. And then using the title ID from that, it pulls the images from the TMDB API, which is similar to IMDb. And so it pulls the title information from that. And then it also pulls the link for the title from the Watch Mode API again. So it's making 3 separate calls there.
Got it. And you're piecing it all together like that.
Yeah.
Really cool. What was it like working with the APIs? Was it difficult to work with? Was one of them in particular really frustrating, or was it easy? What was your experience with working with those APIs?
The Watch Mode API was great to work with. The documentation was very clear, and I actually encountered a slight bug with it, and I contacted them, and they worked with me and fixed it within minutes.
Nice.
So that was actually really cool to debug with their team.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And curious to know about how the computer decides what to eliminate. Is it random at this point, or is there some AI thing behind it?
It is currently random at this point.
Okay.
Just like a random algorithm, but that is something I would enjoy experimenting with in the future, is using like maybe Microsoft Azure's text analytics or something like that to kind of filter through it intelligently.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. Connor, really nice job. Really impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connor and Jay. Next up is Dean, and Dean's panelist will be Chris.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. And welcome to my presentation. I picked up snowboarding a few years ago, and besides it being not an easy sport to get into, you need to account for a lot of factors. You know, being somewhere is one thing, and then the weather is a huge part of it. You'd think it'd be, oh, just go to a mountain, but oftentimes I've been to places where it's simply too cold or not cold enough, etc. So I had an idea: could I search for a place and get some weather info at the same time? And here's Shred. I wish this was a little bigger. So we have to decide first where we want to go. So I'm in the mood to go north. Let's go to Vermont. I'm in Illinois, so. And we get a few options. So this is all happening through Google Maps, and the objective was that I wanted something to be enough for you to make a quick decision right off the bat. Google Maps is giving you the rating currently and the amount of users that have given ratings. So let's say, oh, okay, Bolton Valley looks nice. I'll look here as it loads my information. Fortunately, I couldn't iterate through the dates to have it pull up, but each one of these time cards is actually the current temperature starting today and the 8 slides after being the next 7 days. So given a bit of information, I wanted the user to be able to make a decision. All right, you know, I could be anywhere and decide to go somewhere. Using my temperature data, I can make that decision. Of course, you know, in hindsight, maybe a integrated trip planner or something of that sort would have been nice as well. But just given the limitation, this is all I could come up with. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Sure.
Chris, you can go ahead.
Awesome app, Dean. How did you so you said you just got into snowboarding. How'd you like come up with the idea to like get the data from Google Maps and kind of find the weather and all that?
I didn't want to use Google Maps, actually. I had to. I had a snow resort API that I was using that had inaccurate location data. So if the location is inaccurate, I can't get relevant weather information. I can't pull up the nice pictures because the pictures are coming from Google. The ratings are coming from Google. You know, so Google is very specific. It wants a very accurate information. If it's not accurate, then you're not able to get everything that you need. So I had to transition midway from one API, dump it, use another. It was quite a project. Yeah.
So as far as the API is concerned, so this is a Google API that you're calling to?
Google Maps, and they have a few. I imagine it's because they want to limit the information each call gives you, not just a ton of information. So this search actually is one API, and then clicking the button is a separate API using the information from the search.
Got it.
And then calling on the weather is also another map search through the weather API search. So it's a lot of threading and going through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and is the weather API also through Google Maps, or is that
No, this is separate, but I use Google Map to get my latitude, longitude information so that I can pull it out. Yeah. Is this weather information is accurate. It is today, the day after. It just so happens that I couldn't figure out how to iterate through the days textually, like to present it through a view. But yeah, it's actually really easy once it's all ticking. But yeah, it was fun, I will say.
Nice. Outside of the complications with the API, what was your biggest challenge, do you feel like?
My biggest challenge, the front end. I think the front end is it demands a lot of respect and time, something that I have to admit that I didn't take seriously. I wanted the back end to be strong. Didn't give enough respect to the front end. The front end is, I really now appreciate a well-designed website. It's not a 2-3 day project, definitely. And I've been on this for more than 2 or 3 days. You can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you did a great job. It looks really great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Next up is Drew. And Drew, your panelist will be Brad.
Very cool. Hi, my name is Drew, and today I'm going to be introducing you to my app, Interstellar. Interstellar is an application I conceived to help amateur astronomers log and share their data. So I am already logged in. I'm going to go ahead and click on this My Entries button and just show you some of the entries I've already created in the application. Title, notes, and any other sort of applicable information you can put in here. If you click on the full entry, you can get into the weeds of maybe like the declination and ascension, telescope type, any type of data that an amateur astronomer might need to put into a log. You can also see that you can include images, and if you click on the image, you can see any sort of applicable data there as well. I'm going to go ahead and make a new entry now. And for full disclosure, on December 4th of this year, I was not working hard on my capstone class. I was watching an eclipse. And during that eclipse, I got to see the sun, I got to see the moon, and the eclipse, and I got to see a little bit of the planet Mercury. And I can go ahead and fill in any of this other data that I feel like should go in this log here. And I'm just going to copy over my notes real quick. And when I hit submit, it takes me back to my entries page, and you can see that this new entry has been created. If I click full entry, I can add an image to this as well. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go ahead and name it the same thing I called my entry. And this is definitely my photo. It was definitely not taken by Peter Holdeck out of the Institute of Physics in Ogawa. And we can grab the image URL as well. Very cool. And when we hit submit, you can see that it's added that image to that entry. Something else that was really important to me when I was creating sort of the data scheme for this application was these observed bodies here. I wanted a user to be able to search other users' entries that might be looking at the same thing as they were in the sky. So I've also created this search by subject page here. And all of the observed bodies that have been tagged in user entries you can find here. I'm going to go ahead and see if anyone else has been looking at eclipses. Very cool. And it brings up all of the eclipse entries in the application. This one was even looked at on the same day as mine right here. So I'm going to go back to my entries. And if I decide that I actually want to turn this in as homework to maybe Brian's class, I can click this full entry and then generate PDF here, which takes me to another page where I can generate a PDF of my entry. And if I'd like to add my full name or whatever organization I'll be submitting this to, I can go ahead and put those in here and hit this download PDF button, which generates a nice PDF on my desktop. That is the functionality right now of my application. Thank you so much for listening, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Drew. Brad, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Drew, this is super cool. So I'm guessing that the backend is all user supplied, right? It's all being supplied by users.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I guess I'm curious to know, like, taking that information from the users, how did you design the back end of it? Like, trying to foresee how people were going to interact with the data fields.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this was almost entirely like a user supplied data application, and because the data was the most important thing for me to be treating, I think, in a sensitive way, I was really trying to design it in a way that would be most useful for amateur astronomers. So starting with creating the entry data schema, and then deciding that I needed to have a many-to-many association with the entry schema and then the observed bodies, so that amateur astronomers would be able to look up and maybe see if someone was seeing the same things these were. In astronomy, amateur astronomers have seen some of the most important events that have happened in our lifetime. So just creating like a place where they can go and see if other people are seeing the same things they have was really important to me.
Cool. And I know just from my experience working through these projects, you tend to gravitate more towards front end or back end. So I'm curious to know which part of that process did you enjoy more?
I really liked the design aspect of front end. I enjoyed being able to look at it from a design perspective.
Cool. And were there any things that surprised you? Obviously, this is an idea of your own creation that's not classwork. So any surprises come up along the way?
I was surprised at how challenging it was to format the generate PDF function. That took a big chunk of a day.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm sure Brian didn't teach you, and all of those things are gonna take more time than you would think. But Drew, this was great. Thanks for sharing it with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Next up is Brittany, and Brittany, your panelist is Jay.
Hi, Jay. Hey, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. All right. So the concept of my application, the last couple years, we've had this pandemic going on that I've worked really hard during. And so I've been really close with what was going on in not only the country and the world. And I was also one of the first people who were required to get vaccines. So for that, I wanted an app that I could store my vaccination information, not only when I was getting it, when the next shot would be scheduled, and an image, because after I got my vaccine, I actually lost it, the card. So I didn't want that to happen to everyone else. So if you take a look at my screen, we are actually on the landing page. As a little extra spec, I have some COVID statistics. The first one, which I thought was, kind of goes hand in hand with the, saving vaccines, is actually seeing what testing policies are going on across the world in case you're traveling. So this image here is interactive. You can change it to different regions, and you can find out how they're testing anywhere in the world. Scrolling down, I actually have other statistics as well. Again, interactive. It is worldwide cases, and then you can see cumulative US deaths, which you can compare with other countries as well. So let's go ahead and log in. I am going to log in with Fauci@gmail.com. And it redirects you as soon as you log in. If you have no vaccine saved, it is empty. So you have to go to new vaccine. One of the options, like I said, I wanted to be able to have an image. So let's see. Well, I did have an actual snip of a card, and now I can't find it. So for the sake of time, we'll just go with our class logo. And here I wanted to be able to give you the options of whichever vaccine you have. Each one is coded specifically to give the correct dates down below. Pfizer is a 21-day period in between each shot. So when I pick 1 December, it automatically tells me that my second dose should be on 22 December. And as you can see, everything's here. So when you hit save, it takes you to your vaccine again, where you have all of the information based on your vaccine all in one location. And that is my app.
Thank you, Brittany. Jay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Brittany, this is really timely, obviously, and really useful, and a great idea. Curious to know, are these widgets on this homepage, where do they come from?
So these are actually iframes from Our World in Data. It is a COVID group that updates data multiple times per day. I had a different API I was working with first, and halfway through working with it, found out that they stopped updating it back in like February.
Oh.
And so I kind of used up a lot of time trying to work with that other one, and ended up going with the iframes. But their iframes were really user-friendly and had a lot of information on them. So it kind of worked out in the end.
Yeah, they look great. Yeah. With the uploading of the image, like how does that work?
So that's actually through a company called Cloudinary. It is a third party. I have an account that does, so the user uploads and it gets uploaded to Cloudinary through my account. They do a third party like image hosting. And then as the image is rendered on the screen, I pull the JSON URL tag and save it on the back end. So then later on, when it's used to view your vaccine, the front end pulls that image URL, and that's how it's rendered. So
cool, very cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What you mentioned working with that old API, but besides that, what was the most challenging aspect of the project?
So the image hosting one was interesting. There were a couple hiccups. I was actually quite surprised. I thought it would be a lot harder. And even I had to talk to Brian like one time about it, and it ended up being a pretty quick fix. Definitely the front end stuff on my app was more complicated than the back end. I have the iframes, the image hosting, and then the automatic population of the dates was also kind of fun as well. So
that's a cool feature.
Yeah,
that's a cool feature. I like that. What would the very next feature, if you have more time, what would you build?
I actually see this app more as a medical app. I might not base it sole on COVID, or I might make a second app, but I would like one to be able to add the feature for a family member to add other family members. So a head of a household being able to keep track of vaccines for their children or their parents. That was probably going to be my next feature that I wanted to add.
Yeah, that was super useful. I love this app. It's really great. Great job, Brittany.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Next up is Joseph. Your panelist will be Chris.
Lit. Hold on one second. Let me just do this. All right, cool. Hey everyone, my name is Joseph, and welcome to my Capstone presentation. Couldn't think of any cool names, but for those who know anything about sports betting, you'll understand why I called my app Against the Spread. All right, with everything about sports betting, I had to put a preface that all information is used for entertainment purposes only, and that essentially, if you think you have a problem, that gambling is bad. All right. If we navigate to the homepage, we have a bit about me, which will explain why I saw a need to build an app like this. I've always loved gambling. I've always loved watching sports. So naturally, I geared towards sports betting. And within sports betting, you're always trying to find an edge or some kind of trend that'll make you profitable. What I came to realize over this time was that finding reporting and all the data wasn't easy to read or come by. So what I did with this app was to create a simplified view on how to pull this data. And in regards to the type of reporting I was able to provide, I've been able to amass every NFL game since 2006 with teams, scores, and spreads. The raw data is pulled from an API that's pulled from 2 different casinos in Vegas, but because sports betting is illegal in California, I wasn't able to embed this API into my app. Rather, I was able to download a CSV of the raw data and was able to parse through the information that way. Because we can't get a consistent feed of data into our app, I've also added a create feature to add new games into, so that we can add different games to the database to keep it live. All right, so let's get to the main point of my app. We can start by choosing any team we want to see the records for. We can start by looking at my favorite team, which is the Niners. So over the last 15 years, we've won 127 games, lost 136, and tied 1, giving us a straight up winning percentage of 48%. Their against the spread record is 126 covers, 122 losses, and 16 ties for a covering percentage of 47%. What it means to cover is that when a team is favored to win, Vegas bakes in extra points that they need to win by to cover. For example, a couple weeks back, the Niners played the Bengals, and the Bengals were favored to win by 1. But because they didn't win by at least 1 point, the Niners covered. We can also compare their home games and their away games, and we can see that Oh, sorry. We can see that we win more straight up at home, but we actually cover better against on the road. Because teams change over time, I wanted to add in a feature to make sure that I could include a search or a date parameter to search within a certain time frame. So if we look back over the last 5 years, we can see that we're pretty consistent in not covering the spread. A lot of people might say that 48% is pretty close to 50-50, but when you factor in the juice and the amount of games you're playing, that 1 to 2% can really hurt your bankroll. All right, back to the Niners. One of our division rivals is the Seahawks, which prior to making this, I actually thought we played them pretty decently. So if we look through the Seahawks, we can see that over the last 15 years, we've actually only won and covered against them 33% of the time. If we wanted to filter for the last 5 years against the Seahawks, we can see that it actually gets a little bit worse. We've won 2 of the times, but at least we've covered 5 of the 11 times. In a nutshell, this is essentially why I built this, to get easy to read information to make smarter decisions about placing bets. So if we go back to the homepage, a few additional add-ons I include on my app is the NFL schedule. I included an interactive widget that shows all of the current scores week by week and the upcoming games for this season. That way you can look at specific games you're particularly looking to bet on. And lastly, I also included a Twitter feed for the NFL to get the most up-to-date news about what's going on, especially with so many COVID cases going around the NFL. Looking at specific games may be outliers to trends to help you make better decisions. And that wraps it up. Thanks for your time. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Joseph. Chris, you can go ahead.
Well, I got to start by saying I'm like thrilled by this app because I'm a huge football fan. So like this is a win in my book. What was your favorite part about making this?
I'm actually scrolling through the data and seeing what it's like. When I first uploaded a database, I was only able to get like the last 5 years. And so being able to kind of weed through it and get more data to include in the database was actually really exciting to see the different trends and to see how teams compared to other teams.
Nice. When seeding the database with a CSV file, did you run into any complications or did it end up being fairly simple? What was that?
So on the back end, I mean, the data file only has scores and spreads. And so building out the percentage of how many times they covered and building out that logic on the back end was actually pretty interesting. Like looking at the routes that I had in my seeds file I felt like it's more complicated than it needed to be, but at the same time, it felt really good putting that together.
Nice. And so you're populating the Twitter on the front end and also the updated schedule. How are you doing that?
There's a widget that we have that Broadage provides that has a bunch of sports APIs. Because this doesn't have any gambling information, then I was able to use it. In terms of embedding the NFL Twitter feed, during the Team API project, one of my assignments was to embed the Twitter feed for an online resume. So I actually already had that code essentially written out, and so I included that in and just used the NFL's Twitter feed versus what we'd use for the API project.
Nice. Do you prefer working mostly in the back end or the front end?
Oh, back end for sure. I mean, my page isn't the prettiest and I'm not great at displaying information. There's a lot of stuff on the front end in which like the styling can be stored in different places, whether it be CSS or the app.view or any of the other files. And so working on back end, like just working purely with the logic side of it is a lot more enticing to me.
Nice. Well, it's a really cool app and I hope you put it on the internet because I'd love to use it.
Sounds good. It's on GitHub. Feel free to clone it. The database is already there.
Nice.
Yep.
Thank you, Joseph. John, you're next up, and Brad will be your panelist.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is John, and this is my app, Flix. I am a huge movie and TV lover. People who know me know that I am constantly always trying to find my next obsession, always trying to talk about the latest and greatest of what I've just seen. So I wanted to create an application for people like me to do the same thing. People can go in, find what they want to add to their watch list and make comments and reviews on their favorites as well. So without further ado, let's take a look in Here's the landing page. We can kind of scroll through on this carousel and either create an account or log in. We actually already have an account, so we can log in here. When we log in, that brings us to the main page, which is populated with hundreds of different movies and TV shows. The user can scroll through, get a good look at the picture, title, year it was released, as well as IMDb's rating. If we scroll through, we can actually hover over each title, and we're presented with two different options. More on this, which I'll come back to in a moment, and then this little blue heart. If I click this blue heart, it seems like nothing happens, but if we go over to the watch list, it actually is added to our list here. Looks like I added it twice, but now I have a big list of things that I want to watch in the future. I haven't seen Good Will Hunting in quite a bit, so I'm going to leave it on there, but a user is actually able to remove those as well. If we go back to the main page, we can also search by title. So I am actually in quite the Marvel kick right now. I saw Spider-Man this past weekend, shameless plug, you all should see it. But with that, I will type in Avengers Infinity War, and that will populate here. If we hover over the more on this, that will bring us to a more detailed page for this movie and or TV show. We have the title, year it was released, ratings, some cast information. We have this trailer button that allows us to actually go to IMDb's page, and we can view the trailer here. A brief synopsis, as well as reviews. And this is kind of the bread and butter of the app that I really want to continue to build out. This will populate all of the reviews from all users within the app for the specific title. We're also able to leave a review. I'll give it a 10. Amazing, Marvel's best. And when I submit the review, it'll populate here. A user can actually go to this reviews page as well, and this will actually populate all of the different reviews for all TV and movies within the app here. So a user can come here, take a look at what users are talking about. It looks like Jennings_Philip loved 1917, also loved Chernobyl. So that could definitely help me base my decisions on future viewings by what some of the other users within the app are really talking about. And that is Flix.
Thank you, John. You can go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, very good job, John. Your front end is super slick. I like the looks of it a lot. So I'm guessing, I don't want to assume, but where did the data come from? Was that from the IMDb API?
Correct. It came from several different APIs within IMDb's database. I actually populated the top 250 movies of all time, as well as the top 250 TV shows of all time. And with those title IDs, I made several other requests to populate things like the artwork, the ratings, cast info, as well as the trailer. Those were all part of different APIs.
Cool. And I know this came up actually in my cohort where I designed an app that was very similar to one of my fellow students. And I know Connor had a very similar idea. Is this a surprise to you, or did you actually collaborate together or work together at all?
Oh, it was a surprise. It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, funny how that happens. I was curious to see if there was any co-working there, but that's very cool. So I know you mentioned those 3 different APIs. How was your experience wrangling 3 different APIs? Because that sounds like it could be challenging.
It was definitely a little bit challenging. The different APIs had the data for titles as well between movies and TV shows nested differently. So trying to actually pull that data was quite a challenge to begin with, but eventually found a way to get it to display correctly in the database. So.
Awesome. Well, again, it looks super slick, so you did a very good job. I know it wasn't an easy one working with all that JSON data, but yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Kevin, you're next up, and your panelist is Jay.
All right, I'm Kevin. This is Bucket. It's a place to keep all of your bucket list items in life. You can keep track of them by category and mark them complete when you're done. So I have my friend John's credentials here. So we're just going to log in. He's got the categories, places he wants to go, and places he does not want to go. We'll take a look at these. He wants to go to Hawaii, Jamaica, see if they really have a bobsledding team. Also view the places he doesn't want to go, which is his mother-in-law's house for Christmas. Not very applicable to the application, but this is really a user feature. He's got full control. Let's add some more categories for him. Things to accomplish. So we'll get in here. We'll add an item to complete Actualize coding bootcamp. Give an excellent capstone presentation. We have an image to upload. Go up here. And at the end of the boot camp, you can say, I did this. It gets a little congratulations. You can write some notes. And that is Bucket. We've got some things to build out still, but if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Kevin. Jay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, really nice job, Kevin. This is definitely something that is super useful because I know I have my bucket list items always in my head and it's hard to keep track of. So I definitely appreciate having an app like this. What part of this did you enjoy working on the most?
I like the back end. The front end was giving me some issues, but working through those, got stuck a lot and would end up, reading Stack Overflow,
Sure,
documentation for an hour and a half, and then realizing it was just a comma. So
yeah,
but,
I've been there for sure. You mentioned that you had some things that you had in mind that you would add in the future. Curious to know what those features might be.
yeah, there's things like you want to go somewhere. If I could add some APIs to give flight information, kind of stuff like that.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah, if you were going to start this project over again, would you do anything differently this time around? Now that you've been through like this process of having built your own project.
Yes, I would have planned out features better. I think I got caught up on which direction I was going in, and that would, get me stuck on one thing, and then I have to go back and say, kind of scrap this idea. This isn't going to work right now. So I would have planned out features.
Okay. I really like, it sounds like you're sort of like deprecating the front end, but I really like it. Are you using a theme or how do you put that
Yes,
together?
a theme.
Cool. Really nice job, Kevin. Definitely, like I said, this is a useful app, and let me know when it's up live because I can really use it. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up is Leon, and your panelist will be Chris.
All right. Hafide and welcome. Hafide is a greeting from the island of Guam, which is where I'm from. So it's pretty much like saying welcome. All right. So this is a meal plan generator. The idea behind it is basically like throughout most of my life or practically all my life, one of my biggest problems has been my diet. I haven't been able to keep a good diet at all. Like even just today hasn't been the best, not gonna lie. And so I figured why not build something to help me fix that problem? So here we have a meal plan generator. All right, so planning your meals just got easier. Let's see how easy it is. All right, so we have some diets and we can input our calories and our allergies if we have any. So just to test it out, let's say I want to try a paleo diet. I don't even know what a paleo diet is, so let's try it out. All right, so let's say I want to do like 2,000 calories and then I don't have any allergies to food, so we'll generate a meal plan. And so this request takes a little bit of time. And what's happening basically is when you click generate meal plan, it takes your parameters, sends it to the Spoonacular API, and it gets a meal plan endpoint, or it gets a meal plan, which happens like almost immediately. But what comes with the meal plan endpoint is only these small, like this little bit right here of like names, a little bit more data. It doesn't come with like images or directions or anything like that. And so what I had to do was make a nested loop that looped through each day and looped through each meal for each day. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then so as you click it, on top of getting that meal plan endpoint, it's also sending individual recipe endpoints to Spoonacular to get every image here. So this will be all the images throughout the day. All right, so it's looking like for Monday, I'm gonna try out some some strawberry cucumber salsa. For lunch, we'll have some plank spicy strip steaks, and dinner will have roasted pork belly with late harvest peaches and arugula. Never really tried any of that, so it sounds kind of interesting. And we can click show more info, and we can get our ingredients, our prep time, cook time, how many servings it'll make, instructions, and our nutrition facts and stuff like that. All right, so we'll go ahead and close that up. And so let's say I wanted to save it. I can't save it unless I create an account. So luckily, my daughter has an account, so we'll go ahead and sign in as Stassi. All right, so welcome Stassi to your meal plan generator. Same idea, we have some diet, calorie, and allergies. So let's say my daughter wants to try being a vegetarian. I doubt it, but maybe she'll try it out. And then she's about to be 3. So we'll say 1,000 calories around there should be sufficient for her. We'll click generate and give it a little bit of time again. All right, so we have some dishes for her. So right off the back, I don't think she'll be having a cocktail for breakfast or maybe in general. So maybe we'll try bring her one more meal plan to see if anything changes. All right. So this looks a lot better, I don't know about healthier, but better. I think she'll really enjoy the sweets for this. And so I think she'll like it. So we'll click Save Meal Plan, which will bring us to the personal meal plan page, where this is a page which is right here. And it's basically a page where anytime, let's say me or her mother wants to revisit to see what should we be cooking for the day, or what are the exact ingredients that we need to go to the store, go buy, or what are the nutrition facts or whatever it may be, we can come to this page and it's saved every time. And so let's say for Monday on breakfast, I don't really want her to eat some lemon cookies. That doesn't seem like the healthiest. So what we can do is we can go to the recipes page. It gives some options here. And for the most part, they're all optional. And so the only thing I really want to filter is the diet. We'll keep her going with that vegetarian diet. And then we can do 10 different options, generate that. And we can see some different options here for her so that way we can substitute that. And I think that she'll like this berry banana breakfast smoothie. So I think we'll go with that. We can just double check, make sure everything's good. Got our instructions and all that. And that is my project. This is the meal plan generator. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. Chris, you can go ahead.
Awesome job. It's a great looking app. Am I seeing it correctly that it's already deployed and you're presenting this on the deployed app? Or
yes, it is. And actually, yeah, so this is the link. You guys can go to it. Try not to use too many requests. It is a limit, but I mean, I'll pay for it.
Very, very impressive. So how is the data being populated? Is it from a backend? Is it from an API? How did you go about building that out?
So I'm using Spoonacular API. It's, I feel like, a fairly common API to use. I remember asking Brian if anybody used it, and he said that he did have a couple of students before.
Nice. Is that specific to food? I'm not familiar.
Yes. Okay. I believe they are specific to food. Yep. Meal plans and like recipe generators and stuff like that.
Nice. Are there any like stipulations, like it has to pass a certain thing? Like maybe you wouldn't get certain things for, like you wouldn't get necessarily steak for breakfast presented. Do you have any sort of like things to prevent that kind of stuff? Or
So luckily, Swoon actually they took care of all of that. In their data, they have like for every food that they have for the most part, when they send back the data, it shows like, would this be used for like a breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or would this be used for a specific diet? So they have all those like attached to every recipe in their entire database. They have like those specific like parameters, I guess.
Nice. What do you think was your biggest challenge implementing that?
My biggest challenge definitely was dealing with the data and getting what I wanted to show. For example, as I said, so when you click generate meal plan, it generates a meal plan fairly quickly and fairly easily. But what comes with that meal plan isn't like everything that I believe kind of should have came with that meal plan. And what I mean by is, like, for example, in the meal plan, it only shows like certain data. It doesn't give you like the directions for those meals. It doesn't give you the ingredients. It doesn't give you an image and stuff like that. So what I had to do was kind of like request like heavy. And so in order to kind of get the data that I wanted to, I always had to have these like nested loops within the thing. So that way, like as soon as you click that button, on top of it sending a meal plan request, it's pulling that meal plan, the recipe ID out of that meal plan, sending it back to Swoonacular, and then bringing that information back, for example, the image or the ingredients or whatever it is that I'd like for it to be shown.
Wow, nice. It's complicated. What was your favorite part about doing the app?
I'd like to say getting it online was my favorite part. As soon as I got it online, I sent it over to my parents. I showed my girlfriend. I sent it to Brian just for everyone to use, because it's just like, it's pretty cool to have something online. Like you see all these websites and it's like, this is mine kind of thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. It looks really great. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. Next up is Mehmet, and your panelist will be Brad.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. This is Mehmet presenting my Capstone project, which is the Walker on the Rails. If you really love the walking and hiking on daily basis and discovering the new national parks, this is gonna be your favorite app. So maybe you gotta get the idea how I got this cool name, Walker on the Rails, because we're using the Ruby on Rails as a backend. That's how I got the name, and also inspired me to create this app. So let's get started. User can create the account with their name. Yeah, I mean, they register the application. So since user got the account already, I'm gonna log in, and Kyle Lauren is gonna log in with his password. Oh, this is sometimes happening to us, right? Cool. It's gonna take the homepage. Welcome, Kyle Lauren. And Kyle Lauren wants to add a walk because we got some walking today. Let's say the 5,000, which is not too bad. And yeah, and he added the new walk and get the progress so far, total steps and total the miles, and also wants to check the details like today's walk, and then like user ID, username, and optimal steps, and his steps for today, and the miles and the calories is burned today. And Kyle Lauren is so appreciated because the app is given the optimal number of steps and his goal actually. And that's another feature of my app. Actually is the main functionality of the app, and user can get the optimal number of steps they should walk daily basis. Actually, there's a small algorithm is going on behind the scene, and I write a small function to get the optimal steps. Okay, Kyler is kind of upset because since pandemic, he has been working from the home and gained some weight, and then also he's so determined gonna lose some weight. Let's say that's the new goal after the lost those weights, and the new goal is gonna be 6,300. Yep, which is perfectly sense because he lost some weight, and then ideal step is gonna be a little bit lower, right? Okay, cool. And finally, my app has the other features. They get the 3 closest national parks with their info. Whenever Kyle put his home address and then explore it, and then 3 parks info pops up, as you see, and then is gonna have the distance in a miles, which is how far away from his house, name of the park, address, direction info, weather info. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna log out. It's gonna take the home page. This is the walk around the rails, the first step, which gives you optimal numbers of steps you should walk daily. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mehmet. Brad, you can go ahead.
Yeah, good job, Mehmet. I know Brian's always a sucker for some good Rails fun, so kudos for that. I was curious to hear though, like, obviously every capstone project that anybody ever does, you're doing something that you weren't taught in class. So I was hoping you could talk me through what were some things that you did that maybe you weren't taught in class, and how was your experience with that?
The thing I got, but I didn't talk in the class, for specifically for my app, right? You're asking. Maybe I can say the like my function, like optimal steps, is not a really complicated function, but that's the main thing, because the most of the tracking, like step tracking app, not given this idea. Yeah, that's the coolest part. Also, the API, like National Park API, I use it because I kind of worried about it, because at the beginning, I'm not using an API, just only using my data. But I should apply what I learned in the class, like applying the third-party API. That's another maybe greatest point for my app.
Gotcha. And I noticed in your presentation that there was some calorie calculations going on there. So is that embedded in the function that you built, or is that using something else?
Yes, I built the function for it. By the way, I'm a math teacher. Like, my background is kind of a little bit helping me just writing those functions, because like the proportion equation, like 2,000 steps getting the 0.02 calories, something like that. And how it's gonna happen if you just get like 8,000 steps? Like, is it like a simple proportional relationship? It's not a really complex and difficult function.
Yeah. What was the most rewarding part of this whole experience?
Maybe I can say the whole picture, because you combining your skills, like your backend, like front end, and the database, and most specifically using this third-party API, because like it's so powerful, because you can change the params and then you can manipulate the data. This is amazing. Like, you can, like, I am putting my home address and I'm getting the 3 closest national park. This is the coolest part, with the optimal steps function, of course.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you did a good job. Congratulations. Thanks for sharing it with me.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mehmet. Next up is Mike. Mike, your panelist will be Jay.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. And thank you, panelists, for joining us. All right. All right. So this is Dad's Fantasy Sports. It is a fantasy sports content site. And this is my Capstone app. Fantasy sports is basically when people take real life professionals on professional sports and put them in virtual or imaginary teams. I chose this project because Brian mentioned that we should probably pick something that would help us save our time. and I'm got a newborn. He's about 3 weeks old now. So with my new son kind of being on the way, I thought to myself that I didn't want to forego all of my fantasy football news and content. So this was a great way for me to kind of aggregate that and keep that stuff in my life. So as you can see, it is hosted. I got the back end up with Heroku. I got the front end up with Netlify. I used a template from HTML5 for the initial layout, and then I further styled it with HTML and CSS. And then for the original Bitmoji that you kind of see in the corner and on the front, I got that off of Bitmoji, and then I did the compiled imagery with Photoshop. And then everything here you'll see font-wise is Google Fonts. So here on Dad's Edge, this is the main page, the live news aggregator. On this page, these are all sites that I would originally traditionally go to kind of get my fantasy news from, all kind of pooled to one area. So these are all different API calls from different APIs. I use the back end to be able to get this stuff to the front end. Because originally when I did it from the front end, I ran into a lot of CORS issues, and that's a common thing. So working through those CORS issues was a good experience doing this. These are all RSS feeds from major sports news operators. And this is kind of a common thing that you'll see on fantasy sports, a lot of RSS feeds, and all these things work. You can open up the different feeds and read the information in there. The kind of difference maker and the bread and butter of the site is the live news aspect. So I did a lot of work with Twitter's API, version 2.0 in particular. And what this actually is a live feed of tweets being put out, broadcasted right now. So as they're being tweeted, this is a development mode with the developer's key. So it's definitely not pulling through every single tweet that's coming through pertaining to daily fantasy sports and NFL, but every 10 seconds, it posts a new tweet up here as they come out. So it's a really cool way for you to be able to kind of get, a bit of an edge or start hearing about information coming out before it actually breaks on major news. There's also a player resource tool. Just open it up in a separate tab where you can go ahead and search for a particular player. For this particular page, I really focused in on using Vue.js and Ruby on Rails interpolation for me to be able to have dynamic inputs on the front end and get search results on the back end. So at the top here, you'll see the most recent tweets about that particular player that you put in. And then you also see the most recent post with that player's name in it. And it's in a popularity order from top to bottom. And then the last thing I've got here is a subscribe page. I'm really enthusiastic about fantasy sports and about this concept in general. And I think this is a really great platform for me to be able to kind of build my skills and actually practice them. And so if you are interested in fantasy sports at all, I want to be able to keep people in the loop when I do come out with new features. So I'm going to encourage everybody to head to Dad's Fantasy Sports and click subscribe. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Jay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, firstly, congratulations on your new
Thank you.
baby.
Thanks.
I have no idea how you've been doing the bootcamp for the last few weeks.
It's been fun. It's definitely been interesting.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine. Well, kudos to you. This app is amazing. There's so many different pieces. I don't even know where to start. But let's start with what you call the main event here, which is the latest tweets. So let me get this straight. Is this live right now? Like in real time, this list is getting longer?
Right.
Without refreshing the page or anything?
Correct. Yeah. So that was kind of, the most difficult part of this entire project was getting, first off, the tweets off of my server and onto the front end, but also having some kind of container to where those things could be put and placed and constantly regenerate on its own. I do have kind of like a start refresh button here because what I've done is I realized that when I had it making too many calls too quickly, the server would kind of crash. Okay. And so what I've done is I've spaced them out 10 seconds apart. And sometimes when you get to the page, I just kind of give it like a little bit of a kick in the butt, so to speak. So that's my way to sort of do that. and get the feed sort of going again. But yeah, basically, if you were to theoretically put out a tweet, there's a big potential about NFL or about daily fantasy sports. It's a potential that it'll show up here.
Cool. So how does it, what are you looking for specific keywords? Like how does it know which tweets to pick out?
Yeah, so with the Twitter API and the filtered search, there are certain rules that you can go ahead and set as parameters for the search. So there's several things. It looks for keywords. It's also looking for things that don't have certain words in it. It's also looking for things like what's not a retweet, what's an original message, what isn't just a image only, because that's not going to serve us any purpose here right now. So it does have some different, things that it's doing to omit, certain tweets that come through and make sure that the content that you want to come through is. That's definitely something that I need to spend more time on. Conceptually, I think I probably bit off a lot to try to get all this done, but it gives me a lot to kind of go back to and kind of fine tune and make my features better as well.
Yeah, it's so cool. Is this the most complex feature in your app? This one, the Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it took a while. I was able to get, all the other things to work relatively easy comparatively. The other Twitter feeds, they were just normal kind of API calls. But this one in particular was a curl request. And so I got that to work in my terminal first. But then it was like, how do I get the information out of my terminal onto this screen? And so that was kind of the fun part and sort of figuring out piece by piece by piece. And I really want to thank Brian, my instructor, and also Patrick and Lauren, because I think each one of them throughout this process all gave me, a Stack Overflow link or a breadcrumb or a tidbit that really kind of helped me through that process in particular.
So cool. I love it. What's the second to most complex piece of that you had to work on?
Definitely, I think somebody else mentioned it earlier, but you have to give a lot of respect to, designing a front end and trying to make it look like, what you see on other websites. I personally thought that, design might have been my thing. And then, I look at this now and I say, I can't wait to do the next rendition of it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I know that it's something that I definitely kind of want to focus in on is getting better at that front end and getting better at that UI UX experience. But yeah, that was kind of the next most challenging thing, was definitely working with somebody else's template and trying to make pieces that you want to work or incorporate those pieces.
Yeah, it does look great though. So
thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Mike, awesome. Really great job.
You.
Really, really cool app. And congrats again on the baby.
Thank you. Thank you. Subscribe, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next up is Susie, and your panelist will be Chris.
Thank you. My name is Susie, and this is Belly Blog. I decided to make this because I'm always, out and about in the city as I'm commuting, and I always see a place that I want to go to eat, but I try to make a mental note of it, and I always end up forgetting. So I built this to try to make a simple way to keep track of the food places that I want to go to, or a place that I've already been to, and see what I liked the last time that I went to it. So let's get started. So let's first create a login. We've never signed in before, so let's do that. Susie, not Gatabay. Gatabay@susie.com. Password. Then do the confirmation. Oh, they have to match. All right, so it's gonna redirect me to the login page to log in. All right, we can finally get started. So let's go first through finding a restaurant that I had in mind. I've heard that Picard's is pretty good in Chicago, so let's look for that. But I can also search through zip code in Illinois and see what restaurants are good through there too. All right, so this is a first result. I don't think it's this one. I want for one that's in Chicago, so let's keep looking. Okay, looks like it's this one. So let's view more information on it. So here I'll be able to see the address, $2. It's not that expensive, so I can handle it. They serve pizza, the hours. Let's see their menu. Okay, everything looks good. This seems like a place that I want to go to, so let's add it to my list. So here I can pick from a couple categories. I'd like to go here, add. Awesome. So this automatically redirects to my restaurants list. And so since this is the only thing that I've added, it's the only thing on my list. So let's fast forward, maybe 2 weeks from now, I actually go to the restaurant. I get to experience it, see what I liked. I can put in my thoughts about it. So let's update my content. I'm going to change it to I've been here. What was my favorite item? Let's say the deep dish. I can write a little comment or review about it. Staff was great. Pizza was awesome. Update. So when I press that, it goes back to this list. I go into the restaurant and I'll be able to see my items in there, my thoughts on it. Let's say I went back in again. I didn't like it. It was kind of bad actually. So I write a more thorough review. I want to write a bit more detail about what I didn't like about it. So let's just update that. Copy and paste that here and update it. And I'll be able to see that back here. And that's it. And we'll just log out. And then I can use this in the future whenever I want to go and look for more restaurants. I can just go here and search through them.
Thank you, Susie. Chris, you can go ahead.
Awesome job. It's a great looking website. How are you populating the data?
I'm using a API called DocuMenu. So essentially lists out the restaurant details like the hours, the price range, also the menu items, and the prices for those specific items. I wanted to use a second one to pull up images, but I didn't exactly have time for that. So I had to sort of deal with that one API.
Nice, nice. And how are you saving the data so you can go back to like view restaurants that you do like?
Yeah, so when I go to view the actual restaurant details, it pulls specific information. So like the name, the price range, the hours, and also I think the address. And then from there, it just goes back, saves that data, and then creates my restaurant item for the user. And then it'll show up in the My Restaurants list.
Nice, nice. That's great. If you could add a few more features, what do you think you would want to add to it?
Definitely the pictures, just because it looks a bit bare. I really wish I had time to put in pictures and just spruce it up a bit. So that's something next on the list.
Nice, nice. Well, the user interface looks really nice, and it's a very clear and laid out. It's laid out very well, so you definitely achieved a lot as far as aesthetic goes. Do you lean more towards the front end or the back end, or?
I think I have to do much more logic in the back end with like the searches and what exactly gets saved. So that was a bit more fun. I didn't like doing the design on the front end. Right now, like the front end is just like a zombie of different pieces of the template that I used. It's sort of like plug and play, see what worked and what didn't. So that was a bit more fun to do too. I didn't realize how complicated it could be as well.
Nice. Well, you did a great job, and it all played out. It's all a learning experience. So it's everything that you have looks really awesome.
Thank you.
Right.
Last up today, we have Twee, and Twee, your panelist will be Brad.
Thank you, Brian. My name is Twee, and this is my booking app. I was trying to create this app so my brother can use this for his new business, is the nail salon. So on this main page, you can see there's a section where you can book an appointment, and then this is the services that they are currently giving, and this is the contact information. You can submit the appointment from here, or you can go to the booking section and submit in your contact information. You actually have to type in all of the contact information to be able to submit an appointment. So we're going to type that in. And phone number. And for the available time, you'll have to submit the date first to see the available time. And as you can see from here, 10, 11, 12 is not available. So we'll go ahead and submit for 13. And after you hit submit, you'll see a notification that the appointment is received. And the admin have their own admin page. So on this page, after the user submitted their appointment, the admin can review it on here and see it's okay to approve this appointment. So they can go ahead and click update. And it'll show us approve on here. All of this data will be on the admin page, and the admin can also go to their Google Firebase account to access all of the appointments that was submitted. So this is the appointment that we submitted just now. And from here, you can also delete any appointment that was already done or you don't need it anymore. After you delete it from here, it will also update on the admin page. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Twee. You can go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, Twee, this is really nice. I really like that it was so personal for you. That story really resonated on why you made this and why you did it. So yeah, that was really touching. So I noticed that when the person was setting their appointments, there was a calendar modal that popped up. Where did that come from? Because it didn't look like something that I had seen before.
The calendar, I got it from Materialize.
Okay.
I pulled it from there. It's the date picker.
Gotcha. And I can only imagine that this is very intricate on the back end of things. So tell me about the back end experience of just building it all. Like, was it challenging? What did you run into?
Typo. I only realized how dangerous typos are now.
Happens to everyone though, so it's a good experience to have. I know that you mentioned your story for why you made it. Is this something that you plan to continue to build after boot camp?
No, actually, I'm planning to rebuild this using Rails and Vue instead of going through Firebase and JS.
Gotcha. Well, Twee, this was very good. Congratulations on getting it together. I know none of this is easy, so congrats again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Twee, and thank you, everybody. So that is our final panelist. So thank you all for watching on YouTube. Thank you to Jay and Brad and Chris for being excellent panelists. Thank you to Lisa for being a great career advisor. Thank you to Patrick and Lauren for being great TAs. And obviously, thank you to all the presenters because we would not be here without them. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, Mom.
See if I can find the button.